再婚，我也不会这么快，想起还是前夫好。
If I hadn't remarried, I wouldn't have realized so soon that my ex-husband was actually the one who treated me the best. We were married for 12 years, starting with nothing, but life gradually improved. We had a house, a car, savings, and 2 kids. Life at home was stable, and my mother-in-law helped me take care of the kids every day. I often went out to play cards, and no one ever bothered me no matter how late I came back. My meals were always prepared by my ex-husband or mother-in-law, and I had at least 5,000 yuan of pocket money every month. However, I wasn't satisfied. Instead, I became more and more picky. As my ex-husband's career started to take off, he spent less time with me. I began to envy other women, seeing their husbands pick them up in cars, bring them flowers and gifts. I always felt unbalanced inside. Whenever I was in a bad mood, I would go home and argue with my ex-husband. He never spoke up, always silently enduring it. Gradually, I became more and more annoyed with him, to the point where I even thought his very breathing was wrong. I asked for a divorce. At first, he didn't believe it, thinking we were doing just fine. Why divorce? He asked. He humbly tried to please me, begged me to stay, even asked what he could change. But at that time, instead of being moved, I looked down on him even more. To get divorced quickly, I lied to him, saying we could divorce first and remarry once he changed. My ex-husband believed me and willingly went through with the divorce. I didn't expect that on the same day we divorced, I would take our son and leave. From then on, my ex-husband called me every day, sending me heartfelt messages, but I didn't reply. 2 months later, I quickly remarried, starting a new life with my so-called true love. Although my ex-husband seemed to have found out something, he still called and messaged me, but I ruthlessly blocked and deleted him. After remarrying, I had a sweet period with my second husband. In a moment of impulsive excitement, I even spent money to buy us a house together. I still kept up my card-playing habit, while he helped take care of the kids and didn't work. All the living expenses were on me. Gradually, I realized I had almost spent all my savings, and I started to see my second husband in an unfavorable light. I also noticed he wasn't as patient with my son as my ex-husband was. Inside, I started feeling imbalanced again. Our arguments became more frequent. I criticized him, but he had no tolerance for me. Instead, he brought up old grudges, saying, "If you were really that good, why did you abandon your ex-husband and family?" Hearing these words, I had no way to refute. I could only blame myself for being blind and ending up with my current husband. I remember my ex-husband never laid a hand on me, but my second husband actually hit me. At that moment, I finally woke up and decided to divorce him. However, my second husband refused, so I had to move out. For the sake of the children, I tried to contact my ex-husband, calling and messaging him, but he never replied. With no other choice, I returned to my parents' home. My parents' home is only about 10 kilometers from my ex-husband's, but I felt too ashamed to go back, too embarrassed to face him. Relatives, knowing my situation, sent word to my ex-husband, telling him that I had returned with the kids. I thought my ex-husband would come to see the children, giving me a way back, so I could return. However, my ex-husband never showed up. I had no choice but to visit his house with relatives, using the children as an excuse. The once familiar place had become unbearably awkward. I thought he would try to keep me like he did when I first left. But instead, my ex-husband brought up the cruel things I said when I left, one by one. Why did you come back? Didn't you say anyone you found would be better than me? Back then, I begged you to stay, but you acted so high and mighty. Why come back now? Hearing these words, I was so ashamed I had no words to respond and could only leave in disgrace. Now, I still haven't officially divorced my second husband, and it might take another year or so. Yesterday, I gathered the courage to call my ex-husband, admitted my mistakes, and apologized, telling him that he was the only one in the world who treated me well and tolerated me. However, my ex-husband didn't say a word. I know I've deeply hurt the man who once loved me the most, caused pain for the children, and brought suffering upon myself. Looking back, I regret this divorce so much. I never should have remarried, especially when I was the one putting in all the effort. So, I want to say to all the sisters who are thinking about divorce, unless your husband is abusive, don't mention divorce lightly, and don't act out unnecessarily. If you've already divorced and it hasn't been long, and your ex-husband is willing to give you a way back, then go back quickly. After all, the children are pitiful, and the outside world is not as good as you think. At first, everyone seems better, but after a while, you'll understand. No one will treat you as well as your husband, tolerate you, or be willing to spend money on you like he does. So, treasure the person in front of you. Marriage is not perfect, and neither is life. My biggest wish now is to remarry my ex-husband. I will keep working hard to win him back. Come on.
离婚，我后悔了。
I regret my divorce. Because of the divorce, I became a bad woman in the eyes of others, a disobedient daughter in my parents' words, and a bad mother in everyone's gossip. Many people say that no divorced woman is a good person. How could a good woman get divorced? My parents often tell me, our family is from the countryside, and if you're divorced, the neighbors will laugh at us. Due to financial reasons, I didn't win custody of my child. Many people blame me, saying I'm an irresponsible mother. Today is my son's birthday, but tonight I can't celebrate it with him because his grandparents are afraid that if I spend too much time with him, he'll get too close to me. Over the past 4 years, I've reflected on my decision to divorce countless times. I often ask myself, was the decision to divorce back then right or wrong? Why couldn't I endure a little longer, even if just for the sake of the child? Even though my ex-husband didn't have much money and our life wasn't wealthy, maybe if I had endured for a lifetime, the days would have just passed by like that. I truly regret being a bit too strong-willed at the time. I feel that in this life, I've done right by everyone except my own child. I still clearly remember, in the first month after the divorce, I took my son to the supermarket. After we left the supermarket, he suddenly said to me, "Mom, I'm sorry." I was stunned and asked him why he said that. He replied, "You took me to the supermarket, and I spent 293 yuan. I'm sorry for that." At that moment, I couldn't hold back my tears. I thought to myself, how much of a failure must I be for a 6-year-old child to apologize for spending 293 yuan? From that moment, I swore to myself, I must earn money, even if it means risking my life. I have to earn enough money. It's not just about money, it's so that my son can live a life with dignity in the future. After the divorce, my mother gave me 200,000 yuan to start a business. I started working like crazy, serving customers in the shop during the day and distributing flyers and adding WeChat contacts in various neighborhoods at night. During the scorching summer, under the heat of 40 degrees Celsius, I wore a mascot costume for promotions. Customers often asked me, "Aren't you tired?" Tired? Of course, I was tired. I was extremely exhausted, but I couldn't stop. During the 4 years of running my business, I almost never took a break. My body was worn out, my hair was falling out, and my menstrual cycle became irregular, but every time I thought of my son's words about the 293 yuan, I found the courage to keep going. Today is my son's 10th birthday, and I especially want to tell him, "Baby, please wait for me. Please give Mom a little more time, let me try harder. Mom doesn't love you any less, you are Mom's everything. I carried you for 10 months, and endured the pain of a C-section, and all of that was worth it. But please, grow up a little slower, give Mom some time, and I will work even harder. When Mom gets better, I will take good care of you. No matter how many people scold me, I'm not afraid, because I hope that every light in your life is one that I lit for you."
离婚，你后悔吗？
People often ask me, do you regret getting divorced? Actually, I do regret my divorce. If time could turn back, I wish I could go back to 13 years ago, the year I got married. I would like to redefine myself and live my married life better. It was only after the divorce that I gradually understood. In a marriage, if a person lacks their own opinions, it is very hard to live well. People without cunning also find it difficult to manage life well. And those who over-sacrifice themselves, who are overly kind, and habitually play the nice guy, often do not live happily in the end. More than 10 years have flown by, and many of my friends were surprised, thinking how could someone like me, a kind, hard-working, filial and ambitious person, end up getting divorced? The reason for my divorce is actually very simple. The problems between my ex-husband and I had accumulated over many years. Although he is a good man, diligent and steady, our communication gradually diminished, and the distance between us grew. He was busy with work and barely had time for me and our child, while I was overwhelmed by the trivialities and pressures of family life. I began to feel that I had lost myself in the marriage, and all my efforts seemed to go unrecognized. I tried to have heart-to-heart conversations with him, hoping he would understand my feelings, hoping he could spend more time with us and show more care. But every conversation ended in arguments. He always thought I was nitpicking and didn't understand how hard his work was. Gradually, I stopped having expectations and stopped expressing my emotions. Later, I began to envy my besties, who seemed to have happy lives. Their husbands would send them flowers, take them on trips, and bring romance and surprises on Valentine's Day and birthdays. My life, on the other hand, was filled with the monotony of day-to-day routine. This contrast made me more determined to divorce. I wanted to find my own happiness, even if it meant risking failure. But now, looking back, I realize that marriage isn't only about romance. Care and companionship in the mundane moments are just as precious. Unfortunately, at that time, I didn't realize this, and now it's really too late. Ladies, don't envy other people's lives. Everyone has their own unspoken hardships, just like how every family's cooking pot has soot at the bottom. Those women who seem to have changed their fate through divorce, appearing glamorous and radiant on the surface, often only show the beautiful side of their lives. Their inner suffering is rarely exposed. In this society, divorced women with children are not treated kindly. After my divorce, I went on more than 10 blind dates, but it was really hard to find a better man. I have walked this path very clearly, and every step feels like bleeding in my heart. It's like struggling to crawl out of a quagmire. The pain is known only to oneself. So, as women, how should we move forward? We should strive to make our marriages and our lives better and truly learn to love ourselves. When you are happy and joyful, your children will feel happiness too, and that is what really matters. In the blink of an eye, we are already in our 30s. We should learn how to maximize our benefits and live our true selves. Only by doing this can your children and your parents live better as well.
昨晚我跟女友吃饭啊，突然就接到了前妻给我打来电话。
Last night, I was having dinner with my girlfriend at a restaurant when I suddenly received a call from my ex-wife. She said she had an urgent matter and needed to meet with me. After finishing dinner, I sent my girlfriend home, then hurried to meet my ex-wife. When I arrived, she briefly talked to me about her recent situation, and then made a request. I refused her request, but for the sake of my daughter, I still transferred 30,000 yuan to her. Hello everyone, I'm 30 years old this year, and I work as a real estate agent. I met my ex-wife during a business transaction. At that time, she was looking at houses, and I was the one responsible for assisting her. Over a few days, I patiently showed her many properties, and to thank me, she even treated me to a meal. As a man, I couldn't always let a lady treat me to meals, so I also treated her a few times afterward. Gradually, we got to know each other better. During our conversations, I learned that she owned a flower shop with good business, and she was single at the time. After learning about her situation, I began to pursue her actively. After persistent efforts, she finally agreed to date me. After dating for 3 months, we decided to move in together. My thinking was that only by living together in daily life could we truly understand whether we were suitable for each other. We lived together for more than half a year, and gradually discovered that we were both the person each of us was looking for. So, we got married. After marriage, our life remained as sweet as when we were dating. We went to and from work together every day, cooked together, and cleaned the house together. Life was full of happiness. In the 3rd year of our marriage, my father passed away due to illness. I brought my mother to live with us. Since we had been married for 3 years without having any children, my mother would nag at home every day, saying that other people's daughters-in-law had already had children, while my wife's belly showed no signs of pregnancy. She kept urging us to go for a checkup. Although we didn't like my mother's nagging, we also felt that it was time to have a child. So, we went for a checkup, and it turned out that my wife had a minor issue, but the doctor said it could be resolved with simple treatment. After less than 3 months of treatment, my wife got pregnant. At that time, both my mother and I were very happy. However, my wife seemed a bit downcast. She said she hadn't had enough fun yet. I advised her to give birth to the child, and then my mother could help take care of the child, so she could still enjoy her life. My mother went out of her way to cook delicious food for her every day, fearing that the baby wouldn't get enough nutrition. Not long after our child was weaned, my wife handed the child over to my mother to take care of and went back to being busy with her flower shop. Unexpectedly, after the shop had been closed for 6 months, all her old customers had disappeared, and the business couldn't recover. Eventually, she had to transfer the shop. Since then, she didn't have a job and spent her days shopping with friends and often going to bars to drink. She would often come home drunk in the middle of the night, and when I said a few words to her, she would get upset. I knew she wasn't feeling good about not having a job, so I tried my best to comfort her. But things didn't get better. She continued drinking and sometimes even stayed out all night. During that time, our arguments became more frequent, and our relationship gradually faded. After a big argument, she told me she had fallen in love with someone else and asked for a divorce. Hearing this, I was very angry, and in a fit of rage, we went and filed for divorce. Although she hadn't contributed a penny to the family over the years and even betrayed me, I still didn't want her to suffer too much because we had once been in love. So, I gave her 50,000 yuan when we divorced. Since our divorce, we haven't been in contact for 3 years, and she has never come to see our daughter. Whenever my daughter asks, "Why don't I have a mom?" I can only avoid answering the question. To give my daughter a complete family, I decided to find someone who could accept and love my daughter. Later, through a friend's introduction, I met my current girlfriend. She's a year older than me and is also divorced. She has a son of her own. After spending some time together, I found that she's a very kind person, so we started dating. Last night, while I was having dinner with my girlfriend, I suddenly received a call from my ex-wife. She was very anxious and said she needed to meet me. I was surprised, but I still took my girlfriend home and went to meet my ex-wife. When we met, my ex-wife knelt in front of me, crying and apologizing. She said she had been deceived by that man. Now her money was gone, and she was 30,000 yuan in debt. She knew I hadn't remarried, so she hoped I would forgive her for the sake of our child and promised that she would live a good life with me in the future. Looking at my ex-wife crying in front of me, I recalled all the memories we once shared. Despite that, I still didn't have the courage to start over, perhaps because she had betrayed me once before. But I decided to help her pay off her debt and transferred 30,000 yuan to her. I believe I've done my duty by her.
Why do 9 out of 10 women feel regret after divorce? These women seem fearless, unafraid of anything, even major decisions like divorce. But why do they end up feeling remorse? Have you ever heard this saying? She went through hard times with you, but after divorce, she's afraid you'll end up driving a luxury car. It turns out this saying holds some truth. As the saying goes, an untended field has no farmers, but once plowed, everyone fights to claim it. What you see as grass may be seen as a treasure in someone else's eyes. You think your husband is useless simply because you don't know how to encourage and motivate him. Many couples face similar issues. Many women despise their husbands for being unaccomplished, feeling that life with them is predictable and dull, with no excitement in sight. But let me tell you, even though you're dissatisfied with your husband, has he ever been picky about you? Has he ever expected you to become a wealthy woman and save him 10 years of struggle? No matter how tough life gets, he still faithfully takes on his family responsibilities. You think life is boring and monotonous, but in fact, a simple life is true happiness. When you complain about life, please give him a little more patience. Who hasn't experienced countless failures before achieving success? You shouldn't easily give up on the warmth and familiarity of family life. Many women mistakenly believe that divorce will bring them freedom, thinking that even the air will smell sweeter. However, after divorce, you will only feel regret for not cherishing your husband. Because in the future, no one will be able to replace him, and your children will be affected as well. No matter who you start a new family with, it will never be a complete home. At the same time, I want to say to you, the one watching this, we can only blame modern relationships for being too mixed with materialism. Nowadays, love no longer rules over relationships. Money has taken its place. So instead of complaining, cherish the person in front of you and work hard together with your husband. Let both your wallets and hearts become full, as this is the true foundation for achieving happiness and joy. Do you agree with my viewpoint? Feel free to leave your comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to our channel. Your support is very important to us, and we will continue to bring you even better content. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.